Hey everybody, welcome back to Beyond the Saga. Thank you for joining us. I am Dave Cottingham here with Hannah Burr. How you doing, Hannah?
I am doing well. How are you?
Doing fantastic. Staying warm, I hope.
Yes, for the most part. For the most part, as I wear
Only in
my hoodie.
yeah, only in Kentucky can it be 65 during the day and then a blizzard drops 5 inches at night.
Yep.
So,
Accurate.
yeah, that's right. It's going to warm up a little bit this week, so hopefully we're back outside.
Absolutely.
All right, excited to be with you again, Hannah, because we are continuing on this episode our discussions with Star Wars Volume 1 of this new canon, and we are hitting up Star Wars Volume 9 of Volume 1, whatever, the series. Hope Dies. This is an interesting cover, too. It's really actually awesome. I think this was the cover of issue 50. But it's got Leia here, and it's got, if you can see, it's got the designs like, the TIE Fighter, X-Wing, because this is an all-out battle. And we were just talking before we started rolling that this is your favorite story so far.
It is. Out
Okay,
of all the Star Wars comics, hands down this one.
What are some of the reasons why it's number one for you?
I think the story, well, first off, the story is just fantastic. There's a lot of action. There's a bit of comedy, character growth. I just think for this one, I think for the first time when reading these comics, I kind of forgot about Empire Strikes Back. And for the briefest of seconds, I was like, holy smokes. Are they going to make this? Like, is this actually going to turn out to be okay on some level? So I think that's what did it for me. What are your thoughts? Where does this rank for you?
Yeah, I think it's definitely up there. I think back a couple of volumes before this, the one we talked about called The Ashes of Jeddah, which I think we both were raving that this needs to be a movie or some kind of animated movie. And you can easily say that about this one. This is pretty good. I mean, this is on all levels. Seems like almost a conclusion. Like you were talking, like almost it's like the end of Return of the Jedi in a sense, because it has all the characters in it. It's not just, it's not just we're following Han, Luke, and Leia. We're with the entire rebellion in this. And then the biggest bads of the Empire show up, and it's just a battle. And all 5 issues. So this volume, which is written by Karen Gillan, which came out, I failed to say this, but it came out back in December of 2018, and it collects 50 through 55. In these 6 issues, we're in one place, all 6 issues, which is this base, what I call it, Mako Ta, right? Mako Ta is this kind of space station that they've kind of settled into, where they have gathered all of the Mon Cala fleet that they've inherited basically from the previous volume we talked about. So it all takes place right there, and it's crazy reading this thing. Like you said, the action and some really touching moments and backstabbing and all. I mean, it's so much going on in this. Again, it felt like an ending, even though we're not at the end of this Star Wars comic series.
It very much feels like the climax of a movie or a book or anything. It feels like that moment where all hope is lost, hope dies.
Yes.
Are they going to be able to overcome this?
I know it. And it's a shame because, I think back to, somewhat a shame, but I think back to the Vader comic series we covered, where it was real, you know, it was running parallel to this series, right? There was those crossovers and stuff like that. Well, the Vader series had stopped, and this one has continued on, and it was fun seeing the different perspectives, you know, of when there were crossovers. I would have loved to see more of Vader's side of this, even though Vader was prominent in this in a sense, but it would have been good to see him more on his side in his comic, you know. But either way, we got the rebellion side of it still, and I think that again, I just, like you said, I agree with you. I was like, I don't know how they're going to get out of this, even though I know they do. It was pretty crazy. I think I'll just mention one of the moments for me, I think was, and I think you agree, I think one of the coolest moments was seeing Han in an X-Wing.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
That was pretty crazy. Because we've seen, you know, we have only seen him in the Falcon in the movies, and when he's young Han in Solo, and there's a comic that's out there called Han Solo Imperial Cadet, which we should cover at some point. Mm-hmm. But you know, we don't ever really see him flying anything else, right? So it's pretty neat to see that, I thought.
Well, the cover of that issue is him climbing down off of an X-Wing in the full getup. And I kind of was staring at that picture. I'm like, is that? Yeah.
Right. It's on the back of this volume. Yeah.
Is that Han? That can't be Han.
Yeah.
And then you read it and you're like, oh my God.
No, absolutely. Yeah. So what other moments kind of stood out for you?
For me, there's one moment where Han is in the Millennium Falcon and Vader is in his TIE fighter. And it's essentially a battle of who's the better pilot, for lack of a better way to coin it. And for me, it just was really cool to see Anakin Skywalker, who was considered the best pilot, and yes, Han Solo, who is considered the best pilot.
Yeah.
Just kind of fight it out that way. And I also think, and you and I were talking about this before, the fact that not only do you have the entire rebellion there, and you got some of the biggest baddies there too, you also get a lot of callback to Jyn and Rogue One. And, you know, they call themselves the Rogue Squadron to kind of carry on that legacy. So I think that also, just because of what we know what happened in Rogue One and how that ended, I think that kind of helped carry that tone of, are they actually going to make it? Even though we know they have to, but it still carries that somber tone.
Yeah, it's how it ended. It's amazing that, you know, Rogue One came out in 2016, I believe. And at that point, you know, Star Wars has, episode 4 had been out for almost 40 years. And to think now, when you're looking at something, when you're reading the story like this, when you're watching Empire and Jedi, you know, before Rogue One, you knew that their motivation was really just driven by, you know, restoring freedom to the galaxy. That the Empire is corrupt and evil, and that they were tricked into, you know, believing that what the Clone Wars meant, right, and what happened there. But now, in the end, like what we're learning now, which is crazy, so many years later, that their motivation was actually Jyn Erso and Rogue One. And it's really cool to see that incorporated into this right now, because again, you can throw in something years later, decades later, and it works still. It still works, and I love that they are using Jyn Erso as a motivation to fight and have that hope, because even like this, it's like, I mean, when all else feels like is not, is not going to happen for them, it's going to end, there's still ways to figure it out and get out of it. So I really thought that was a really key aspect of this book.
It made me want to rewatch Rogue One, and I'm not the biggest fan of Rogue One, so it made me want to watch it again just to see if now my feelings have changed about it. But another moment, though, in this comic that really stood out to me is that, this isn't a spoiler. It happens in the first chapter, if you will. Trios is apparently a double agent.
Yes.
Sabotaged this rebel base floating in space and told Vader where they were. So that's how they get in this situation. Well, there's a moment where Trios is making her escape, and she's in an escape pod, and Leia's on the other side trying to keep her from escaping. And they just kind of have this female leadership versus female leadership and two different mindsets going on what it means to be a true leader. And as a woman reading that, I was like, oh my gosh, because you have these two points of view that totally make sense if you were to step in their shoes, because poor Trios, Vader threatened her with literal ashes of a planet.
Right.
So she's in survival mode, self-preservation. What does she need to do to survive, to keep her people alive? Well, Leia's the same thing. Vader destroyed her entire planet in front of her eyes, destroyed her entire life. So she's trying to figure out, how do I keep the legacy of my people alive? And, you get two total different perspectives. You got one saying, look, I'm going to do whatever it takes. Well, no, they're both saying I'm going to do whatever it takes, but their motivations or their end goals are different, or their ways to that end goal are different. So that was also something that really stood out to me as well.
Yeah. Yeah. It's weird. And I think even looking beyond this book to the other books coming up, Shu Torun, which is what Trios is the leader of, or the queen of, it seems like she's always popping up in these stories somehow, and she's been a central character in this whole Star Wars comic series. Again, there's another one that's Shu Torun coming up that involves her, I'm sure, because obviously she didn't they didn't solve that issue with her in this story. So she's still around, and she keeps popping up, and we keep learning more and more about how involved she's been. There was a section, I think, did you read that? You read that, I'm sure. There was a section during issue 50 where it shows kind of the backstory with her and Vader, which obviously makes sense. That's what we were saying. Like, it's not really a spoiler giving that away because it happens so early in the story. What happened and who caused this. But the story is how they're going to solve it and get out. But it's crazy, like, again, all the characters are there. General Dodonna's there. Mon Mothma's in this. Even Draven from Rogue One is in this. Of course, Wedge, Han, Chewie, of course. I mean, it's filled with everybody. Admiral Akbar. So it's like I said, it's almost like an end battle.
Yes.
Yeah. And then Vader, I think, is this the first time we saw Vader's executor?
I think it is.
Yeah, I was surprised to see that actually because I don't think we've seen that yet.
I think it is.
I could be wrong, but maybe. I don't even remember the last time we saw Vader actually, because these stories have been away from him a little bit with the last couple of volumes.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember that too. But the executor, if we saw the executor before, it was insignificant.
Yeah. Yeah, but man, he shows up in this with it, and yeah, starts making some bad stuff happen.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I don't know what else. Let's see. I think the big thing for me too. I think again, it shows. You know, I think you mentioned this actually. I think maybe during the Ashes of Jeddah volume. This once again really shows how Luke, Leia, Han, especially how their leadership is growing within the rebellion. And again, bridging that gap between 4 and 5, how they came to be just, minor characters as far as the rebellion goes, to being the leaders when we get to Empire Strikes Back. Because they're at this point, they're running almost, running the show in a sense, leading squadrons and stuff like that.
Well, they are, because no one else was doing anything.
True. Yeah.
Everyone else was like, "Oh, we got to figure out this. We got to figure out this problem and unsolve these codes and hack her system." And meanwhile, Luke's like, "Screw that! I'm going out there." And so and Han is trying to deal with something else, and then he comes in rather early on, and he comes in. He's like, "Oh, there's stuff going down. All right, let's do this." And then Leia is like, "No, we got to do that." So they all just kind of naturally stepped up into these leadership roles, which we've seen them do throughout the series.
Yes.
But in this one specifically, where the stakes are so high, and it's not like an individual side quest that they're on.
Right.
I mean, yeah, they're stepping into some pretty big roles and proving that they have what it takes, even though, Luke and Leia, we still have to remember they're teenagers.
Yes, that's right.
They're teenagers, and they're stepping up into these major roles.
Yeah, that's right. Very good point. Yeah. And obviously Luke hasn't had any training in any of this stuff, right? He's been sitting on a farm for 19 years. And, Leia's been a little bit as far as politics go, but as far as military training, she's probably had a little bit, I'm sure, but nothing to prepare for, an all-out rebellion against the galactic empire. It's like, so yeah, pretty impressive. And I think again, it's just doing a fantastic job bridging that gap of these characters, the growth of these characters from just, getting lucky and destroying the Death Star to actually leading a full-fledged rebellion against, because the thing about it too is you got to keep in mind that at this point, which is only maybe a year, I think it's maybe 6 months or so, maybe a year after episode 4, the actual Rebel Alliance has not been around very long. Like the Rebel Alliance wasn't formed after episode 3. Like the Rebel Alliance hasn't been around for 19 years. If you watch Star Wars Rebels, the Rebel Alliance was formed just like a year or two before episode 4. So there was all these pockets of rebels around the galaxy and fighting in their own terms. But it wasn't until they all finally got together and formed this alliance that they're actually working together. So they've only been together really, I would say, for only like 2 or 3 years. Right. So, yeah. So to be able to come in like as young as, like you say, they are, and gain the trust of these leaders and the other, soldiers of the rebellion, it's pretty impressive. It's pretty good.
Absolutely.
So where, any last, thoughts?
Only that you really should read this.
Totally.
People listening in, even if you're not a big comics fan, you still need to read this one. You just do.
Yeah. I mean, it's like I said before, I think the last volume, which was Mutiny at Malankala, that was the first one that I didn't reread. Like I had not read it before. This one I had not read before, and this is it's really good. This series is really good, leading up and filling the gaps in between these movies. So highly encourage it. Significance, I guess, we always like to talk about the impact on the saga, and we've kind of hit on it with these characters, but anything else that kind of stands out to you as far as the significance to the saga?
I mean, this is incredibly significant. I mean, I think there's not much more that needs to be said without sounding like a broken record player based on what we've already discussed. Mm-hmm. It's crucial for them and them stepping up into leadership, them almost losing entirely.
Yeah.
It's such a key moment.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it is too. I think, again, when you think about the movies, just watching 4 and then watching 5, even if you know that there's 3 years in between, it's almost seems as though they left Yavin and found Hoth, and they've been hiding this whole time, and the Empire's been looking for him. But as we've learned with these books, that is not the case. I mean, they have been fighting for their lives these 3 years. And again, it helps build these characters, their confidence, their knowledge, their quality of leadership. And then, of course, Vader, if you flip it over, the frustration that he has to have, right, with not killing these rebels.
And the growing frustration Darth Sidious has against his apprentice. I mean... Exactly. You're right. I wish we could see Vader's side on all of this. That would be so fascinating to see.
Yeah, I wish they would have kept that going, because I think that helped a lot with the different points of view, on these incidences and parts of the timeline. So yeah, I think this is pretty significant. I mean, I think the rebellion, I mean, just seeing how it could have ended so many times, it's crazy.
Insane.
Yeah, it's crazy that they were able to survive this whole time. So, all right, so we'll continue this series, of course. Where does this? So obviously, this rate's pretty high for you, I guess, right?
5 out of 5.
5 out of 5, yeah. I can't remember if I think I did Jeddah 5.
Yes, and I did 4.75.
Oh, you did.
I think.
Yeah, I think you're right. I'll probably go 4.75 for this one.
Okay.
Because it's almost there. I think Jeddah was just, for some reason, Jeddah feels a tad bit better, but man, this is pretty close. So.
Agreed.
Well, we can do tenths. I'll do 4.9. How about that? I'll do
4.999999999.
Yeah, no kidding. It's so good.
It is.
So yeah, pick up Hope Dies Volume 9 there. We will continue covering this series. Volume 10 called The Escape. We'll do that at some point. But of course, we've got more to do, so keep checking back on this YouTube channel here, or keep listening to us on the podcast feeds. We're going to be covering in the near future the next volume of High Republic. We've got Into the Dark still to cover at some point. And then I realized that we didn't finish the Aftermath series, so we're going to do that too.
Yes.
As soon as Hannah reads Empire's End. Because I was looking at other novels that I had read that maybe you haven't. So, well, I've read them all technically, except the kind of the newer ones. But But I did want to mention big news. It was always known that the third book of the Padme series, Queen's Hope, is coming out April 5th. Just got word a week or two ago that Catherine Tabor is coming back to voice the audiobook, because that, for some reason, wasn't I think possibly that could have been why it was delayed. Was maybe they needed to get her in and record. But that will be out. I'm definitely diving into that right away when it comes out, because
yes,
right, yes. So can't wait for that. We've already covered Queen's Shadow and Queen's Peril, so we'll get into Queen's Hope and then cover that as soon as that comes out. Exciting stuff, Hannah. Exciting stuff.
So excited. So much
excited.
Great stuff.
Yes, love the Star Wars stuff. We got to keep doing it because, it's we're kind of on hiatus right now until Obi-Wan drops May 25th. So we'll get some other stuff read.
Sounds fantastic.
I know. You excited about Obi-Wan, that trailer? Huh?
Yes. Oh, I'm so excited.
I know we've been texting with the group with us about it, but the Grand Inquisitor was the main topic, but
yes, slightly confusing, but cannot wait.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, doesn't kill the anticipation. So,
yes.
All right, thanks everybody for listening, for watching. Have a great rest of your week. For Hannah Burr, thank you, Hannah.
Thank you.
I am David Cottingham. Take care, everybody. May the Force be with you.